Had a bad day at work? Don't let it wreck you. I can assure you this is most certainly nothing in comparison to what happened with the protagonists of today's video. So, settle in and get comfortable. We begin now. We shall enter the scene perhaps as the unique loading pieces of a machine takes place. Nothing could have foreshadowed the bad that was to come, but sometimes a driver can forget to set the handbrake on a car. Fortunately, the boy managed to jump out of the way, or else he most certainly would have been hurt. In this particular story, the workers are already unloading the vehicle. However, they didn't have to do too much. The vehicle unloaded itself. Yes, the items did sustain some damage as a result, but this nevertheless saved countless hours of work. We do hope that the damage caused will not be deducted from the movers' paychecks. Roofing jobs can oftentimes be a headache for anyone, even for professionals. Nevertheless, you need to be a genius to end up in such an embarrassing predicament. Now the man will most definitely have to refer back to a couple of manuals. What do we have here? The mating dance of the crane? Apparently not. These are in fact law enforcement officers from the Rexburg Police Department in Idaho who have been ordered to learn how to ride a Segway in order to be more productive. It would seem that they most likely will not be able to increase productivity for some time. In the next plot, we have a situation in which the rescue personnel themselves would have been saved. As the saying goes, the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. But it appears that these warriors were implementing firefighting measures for their own car, and not for a burning object. This is what 5 seconds in the life of a bartender looks like. Just one wrong move, and 400 guests are without champagne. Sometimes life gives you the short straw, I guess. There are obviously no maids in this production, otherwise, why would this guy be so put off? But now on whom does it fall to clean everything up? Sometimes helpers need assistance themselves. I'm curious to know exactly how the tow truck ended up in this position. I had to use a crane just to set it down on wheels. Although everything would have proceeded much more smoothly if the crane operator had even an elementary knowledge of physics. And now for one more construction comedy, or shall I say tragedy. You can decide. At least none of the workers were injured. What's going on with these crane operators? One clearly has no idea how the world and physics works, and the other has clearly not paid a visit to the ophthalmologist for some time. But then again, maybe his beloved mother-in-law just so happened to call him right at that moment, and the guy just freaked out. Is it time to put the boat up in the hangar? Be careful who you pick to do this, otherwise you'll definitely be hashing out a claim with the insurance company. It looks like this time you'll need to cover the repair of the boat and compensate the owner of the pickup truck too. The story here, that moment when you realize that it's better to just avoid loading the pallets so high, because otherwise you cannot avoid a turn like this, and it is quite the turn to watch. And yet again, we have some excessively overloaded equipment. This is what happens when you don't know the measurements. Although maybe the car just hasn't been inspected for a while. What do you think caused such an accident? In the next video, we see the next fire department rescue service exercise. And my, what a turn of events! Or should I say a sharp turn of the vehicle. Interestingly enough, these rescuers were able to extinguish the fire. Or did everyone hurry up to pick up the overturned car? Hooking up the house, flipping a car over from a tow truck, that's all well and good. But losing the bucket? Now that's a level 80 worker. And even more proof that one needs to choose workers carefully when moving property. Now this forklift loader will have to find entertainment figuring out the vehicle's flight path, and of course, the loss in salary as well. But did you think only roofers and loaders suck at calculations? If so, then have a look at this welder carefully weld on the rail. Then just like that also diligently cut it. Fortunately for him, the grinder was close by. Otherwise, he'd be stuck in a pretty uncomfortable position for a good while. It's been a while since there was any cleaning, and oh how unfortunate this guy was. He was so good at getting the parking lot all cleaned up, but not so good at throwing that bag into the garbage truck. This guy definitely would not have been the NBA's first pick. Wasted! Did anyone inform these guys that the stuff is called heavy equipment for a reason? But I guess they know that now based on their own experience. I wonder who exactly told them to drive off the vehicle. Some days the most unexpected clients drop in at work. Although I do wonder why this guy was so terrified by Bambi, especially considering the lack of antlers. This girl obviously loves ranch, and now not only will she have to eat it, but also wash it off of her clothes and get it off the floor as well. Doesn't look like this car got too banged up, just gotta add breakdowns. It would have been better if these guys had just waited for the professionals to show up, or at least remember that no one has undone the handbrake yet. What exactly happened is yet to be determined, not only by the audience, but also by the owner himself, judging by that expression. But one has to agree, riding on half of a bike isn't the most comfortable feeling. I wonder how long this forklift driver has been awake already. He's definitely not going to get any sleep now with all the extra shifts he's going to have to work to cover the damages. Fast food workers have to be fast for a reason. You want some hot fries? Hold up, the packing. Oh, sorry, looks like it wasn't very hot. Now here's a situation which really illustrates what unbearable burden means. For a worker like this, of course, that kind of weight is no issue whatsoever. For the driver, however, its dimensions may have turned out to be a bigger issue. And in our next plot, we have yet another hysterical unloading of a vehicle. Did you really think that it was meant to be like that? Most likely, this driver was running late and figured he could just unload the empty container like this. And even if there were glass bottles in the boxes, he still would have done the exact same thing. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And this, everyone, is how railway locomotives are unloaded in the private port of Mundra, India. Only, I'm pretty sure it needed to be lifted up, not lowered down. Have I ordered too many drinks? Well, whatever. Now we gotta get rid of a couple of boxes. Oh snap! I hooked something else too. Was it really necessary to purchase such expensive equipment to move the load, when it would have been a whole lot easier to just get another guy on site and move everything by hand over that short distance? Money would have been saved, and that stove would still be intact. Tell me, how many times have timber trucks in Brazil crossed over this wooden bridge without a hitch? Obviously not this time. As it turns out, bridges simply collapse every so often. And just one more bit to confirm that it's still necessary to comply with given technical standards for the weight and unloading of construction material. Now these guys will not only have to level out the road, but also get that dump truck out of it as well. So what's the issue with these so-called professional heavy equipment loaders anyway? Seriously, how could you forget about stopping transport on a slanted road? Although now they'll likely remember this little adventure for years to come. Can't afford to rent a truck? No problem. This is how such problems are solved in Romania. I wonder how far this assistant has to run and how much is left over for him. Or perhaps this is just how people are starting cars these days. It would appear that these plates were loaded almost correctly. Doesn't look like that helped the worker though. The uneven pavement came out on top with this one. At least the builder wasn't hurt when the slabs fell off. This guy has most definitely never heard of safety precautions, or maybe he just lacks a sense of extreme since he opted to ride the pipe rather than a handrail. There's a reason it says keep your distance on the tram. As it turns out, this doesn't just apply to traffic, but also when hitching one section to another. Funny how this girl tries fixing the problem. Did she actually think she could just muscle it herself? In this one, yet another unplanned unloading is set to take place. This truck got stuck on a washed-out road, so the decision was made to unload it in order to avoid overturning the vehicle. Except, something went a bit sideways this time. The load was flung out onto the road, and now the truck will have to be lifted up. I mean, there's not that much left. What a perfect stack this store has there. And oops, all that time wasted. And now you'll have to start all over again. Judging by his expression, he definitely gave it his best. And lastly, we will show you just how packages are loaded in the mail. The conveyor belt would be just fine if it wasn't fooling around with those boxes, which by the way read fragile. I guess this woman must be pretty amused at the fact that someone will most likely receive their coveted De La Marais porcelain with some small defects. So, how are your work days going? Share your funny stories in the comments. And don't forget to ring that bell and leave a thumbs up.